Hello, welcome to Aspire to Soar. My name's Kerry and today I'm joined by Jane from Quantum Energy Healing, and we are going to talk all about health and soul contracts, trauma and why it's important to face it, and incarnation patterns and their importance in our lives. So welcome to the channel, Jane. Thank you for being here.
How's everyone?
Today I wanted to give you a chance, first of all, Jane, just to talk about your background, who you are and how you got into this.
Hi, yeah. So I would have to say, like many healers, mine started with my own sort of trauma, but it was more from the perspective that I came down with rheumatoid arthritis.
Wow.
So I was working professionally, and all of a sudden it started with I had trouble walking. So after being a triathlete for 10 years, all of a sudden I'd take a bunch of painkillers to go running.
Wow.
And then it got to the point where I had trouble walking. And then I got pregnant and it got really bad. And, my hands started swelling up and then my elbow locked. And my husband was dressing me while I'm pregnant, and I kept going to the doctors, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
They're like, you're just pregnant, you're fine. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, this is really bad. This is super bad. It's not supposed to be like this. So long story short, the RA became so bad that my husband and I just assumed I'd become sort of an invalid, like wheelchair bound. And I was about to give birth to my baby and I couldn't open a jam jar, let alone do a diaper. So I was finally diagnosed with RA. And I think that was my 2x4, because I effectively quit my job, and I focused on my son and my family, and I tried to maintain some sort of identity, but that's where I had to begin deconstructing all my beliefs. And I had to journey inside to understand, how did I get to this point? So that's kind of where things became unhinged. From there,
It's terrifying.
It is. And you just sort of have to be like, okay, I'm probably going to be in a wheelchair. I'm probably not going to be able to drive in 6 years. I'll just do the best I can. That said, I've been in remission for 9 years.
Wow.
So I come from a perspective of we can all heal ourselves. But in my journey, because I stopped working professionally, I've always been interested in the metaphysical. I've always been interested in healing. I've always felt that in my gut. So I started with QHHT and doing, quantum healing hypnosis technique. I started to realize I can feel when the higher self of people, of my clients, was coming in. So I'd feel the energy shift. And then I'd start to hear the answers of, that my clients were going to give before they gave them. And then I thought, oh, well, it'd be really fun to do like Reiki or something. And I realized how powerfully I could feel energy, because a lot of us sit there and we say, oh, they can do it, but I can't, And I think a part of my journey is saying that we can all do it. Yeah. It's your choice. It's all inside of all of us. So, but then from energy healing, I think one day, my son was hurt and he just looked at me and said, Mom, can you do some energy healing? And I said, yeah, sure. Not thinking about it. And I started to work with the energy, and all of a sudden I felt a consciousness that was an aspect of myself step into my body and start directing the energy healing. And my son was like, wow, that was really powerful, Mom. What was that? I'm like, I'm not really sure.
I got goosebumps when you're talking about it.
So that's the other thing in this journey, is that you can do it from the perspective of QHHT, and you take a journey into subconscious and you alter your state of awareness so that you can connect to your higher self. Yeah. But then you have higher frequency aspects, that are your higher self, that you can integrate into your current consciousness, and it begins to work with you. Yeah. And that's what this period in human evolution is about.
Yes, being able to integrate.
Yes. So we integrate our higher self aspects that have, so that we begin to have access now to our past, present, and future lives concurrently, consciously, because really quantum reality is holographic. It all exists at once.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, the background. And from there now I do energy healing and soul journey readings. But the quantum hypnosis and the QHHT is primal to doing a deep dive into who you are and what you are.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you do with yourself to heal your rheumatoid arthritis, to go into remission? Sorry. Was there one particular thing that you did, or did you just merge everything, or where did you go with yours?
I think healing for anyone is about shifting from a lot of different perspectives, right? So when you've got something like rheumatoid arthritis, it's not like you go to that one life and that one memory and you pick it out and then you're healed.
Yeah.
This is about a manifestation over a number of different levels that need to be healed. Yeah. And so I've found when you do healing, each person's journey is very individualized for them. Yeah. I know there are a lot of people that say, if your right leg hurts, it's because you're having trouble moving forward. There's a little bit of that, but when you like, say you do a QHHT and you bring through the higher self or quantum hypnosis and you say, what is going on with the right leg? What is the origin of that pain? What's the belief that's being held there? Yeah. You'll find that it's much more specific to the individual.
Okay. So everything's individual. So for what works for one person isn't going to work for another. It's not like going to the doctor and taking a pill that's going to suppress your symptoms and that'll probably work for 90 people out of 100. This is more individual.
It's taking a deep dive, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I had to deconstruct my ego, right? Because I was corporate. I was focused on the next promotion. I was focused on the next raise. I worked day and night. I really didn't want to get pregnant. My husband just said, you're getting on. Maybe we should try. And I was like, whatever. Will never happen to me. Then I ended up pregnant. I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? So for me, I had to deconstruct my identity from the perspective that I'm okay as I am. I am full and complete without that job, without that identity, without that recognition. Yeah. And that was the first layer, deconstructing the ethos of my rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you peel away the layers, the nuances, how do I say this? The journey through healing the rheumatoid arthritis wasn't just, okay, I've deconstructed myself. I'm okay without my job. It becomes much more subtle and nuanced as you go through time, and you have to keep revisiting the frequency or the energetic of the emotion or the belief, and refining it and healing yourself so that you continue to drop the density.
Which is particularly hard for a lot of people, because you go through life just, I'm Kerry and I am a EFT therapist and that is me, and that's your life, your whole persona. That's how you introduce yourself to other people. That's what people do. That's how we interact with each other, of who we are, who is, and most usual, that's our job. This is my job. This is who I am. And it's really, really hard for people to investigate on that level and drop these layers of ourselves that we've got built up around who we really are. That makes sense.
It takes honesty and integrity with yourself. You can't, if you're going to sit and deceive yourself, if you're going to sit and be in denial, you can't face it, you can't heal it. And similarly to, we've from a 3D perspective, this is my job, this is my title, this is my identity. we do the same thing with our traumas and our pain.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. Yeah.
I've just gotten divorced. I'm a single mother.
Yeah.
Nobody wants me. There's not enough money. How do I feel the kids? And all the emotions that come with those types of situations, among many others,
Yeah.
but that's a simple example.
Yeah.
And then you hold that, I'm not good enough, or whatever the circumstances were of your trauma or your experience, child abuse, what have you. So it's trying to teach people that it's great to have the emotion. It's great to feel it. What happened is real,
Yeah.
hold it, appreciate it, value it, but don't allow it to be your identity. You have to let it go. You have to let everything go.
So important. And
yeah,
it's not easy for a lot of people until they get into it. Once people can get into doing it, then it feels good to do it, and it feels nice to do it. At first it can seem like such a huge task to try and drop this who you are, the boundaries that you've put up, and the life, because that's your life, that's who you are and living. And it can seem really, really scary to a lot of people to have to step outside of that.
Yeah, and sometimes I find that many people don't realize, first of all, they don't realize that they have the power to change their reality, but then they don't realize they have the power to define themselves as something other than what they're experiencing currently or what they are in the past. So I'll often talk to people and they'll be stuck in the past and in the situation that they're in, which is carrying those beliefs and those frequencies. And I say, well, who do you want to be? Well, I'm nothing. But that's not true. Who do you want to be? If you could be anything with no restrictions, what does your heart say? Where does your heart take you? And it's about putting people and empowering them to be like, you holding on to the past and all those emotions and all those traumas, okay, they happened, but that's not who you want to be. So let's create the new you. Cut the ties that bind you and just move on, free, be free.
And it should feel exciting for people to hear that. And it's, once you generate that level of excitement, anything seems possible.
Yeah. So it's it can be a very beautiful experience.
Okay, so health and soul contracts.
Right.
What are they?
Okay.
It's a bit of a big topic to expand on, sorry.
So I think the way to look at health and soul contracts, and I'm gonna, do you mind if I describe it from two different perspectives?
No, that's fine, go ahead.
Okay. So as an energy healer, when I go into somebody's energy field, it's their toroidal field. So it's like a big apple or like a donut, right?
Yep.
And with the energy flowing through the center.
Yep.
And permeating. Yeah. And as you go further out, you're hitting different densities and dimensions. Okay. And when you are holding on to trauma, pain, or a belief that is not for your highest and greatest good, like victim, victimizer, master, slave, control and domination, submission, whatever. Okay. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Lack of self-love, on and on. You go through the energy field and it's like you'll find dissonance. Okay. It's like noise. If your energy field is a song, there are a couple notes that are off. Okay. So that dissonance reflects the energy or the frequency of your emotion and your thought. Okay. That hold it in your energy field. Okay. More often than not, the traumas and experiences that people are having in their current life do not originate from their current life. Okay. So when you have but you're carrying the trauma there, it's occurred at a certain level. And how do I say this? the way that it manifests itself is through a reflective universe, okay? So
Okay.
because you're carrying the frequency, the emotion, and the thought in your energy field, and you believe it, that means you attract it to yourself.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the reflective universe. So if you think, I'm not worthy and I can't have that job, you've created resistance to getting that job.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If you carry the energy and the belief that you're a victim, you will continue to always experience things as a victim.
Yes. So the original law of attraction.
Exactly. So the individual has the power to sit there and take that resonance and identify it as, we'll call it victim victimizer. So they're the victim.
Yeah.
They have the power to sit there and go, I'm tired of being the victim. I don't want to hold it anymore. Yeah. And some people, to heal it, can just sit there. They're empowered enough to go, I'm not going to be a victim anymore. Today, when I get up, I'm going to stand up for who I am. I'm going to do what's in my heart and I'm going to move forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I've had some clients who've had very traumatic life experiences. And one of them woke up one day and they just said, I'm so tired of, this was extreme abuse. Okay. I'm tired of living through these abusive experiences. Every decision I've made every single day of my life has taken me to one abusive situation after another. So today I'm going to get up and I'm not going to follow my own advice. I'm going to do the exact opposite. Every day I'm going to be not who I usually am.
Yeah.
One foot in front of the other. And within a year, this woman was newly married with a new child in a safe, secure home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she just decided in that moment, I'm not going to be the victim anymore. Yeah. But some people aren't ready to let go of those emotions and those beliefs so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, there are different techniques to work with you, because sometimes you cannot. So for example, if you come to an energy healer, if you come to me and you say, I've got this issue, I want you to take it away. And I'm going in there and I feel resistance. Sometimes I get resistance because the person so strongly identifies with the emotion and belief, they're not ready to let it go. So they have to continue carrying it until they're done with it. All right. And people will carry these energy signatures through lifetimes.
Okay.
Eons, because their soul just isn't ready to, like, I've had enough. Okay. So this life now, you have, each and every individual has the opportunity to say, I don't need it. I don't want it. Right. So that's where like QHHT and quantum hypnosis comes in. If somebody has trouble identifying or empowering themselves with understanding,
yeah,
or there's confusion surrounding the experience, what we do is we take them into a past life. Yeah. And the higher self will take the individual to a past life scenario that resonates with the issue they need to release. Okay. And it will always do it in a non-threatening manner. Yeah. The higher self is very gentle, very delicate, very loving, because they want you to dump the density. Okay. So you take your past life journey and you start to understand the people who are in this life. Yeah. And often they're the same people that are in your current life. Yeah. So you get to see patterns from an objective perspective. You're a witness to a situation. You're reading the story of somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you bring the higher self in afterwards, right? And, for example, you say, okay, why did I choose my father to be my father, right? What was I supposed to learn from him? What was he supposed to learn from me? What was our contract, right? Sometimes if there's a particularly egregious trauma that's occurred, you bring in the higher self of the father, a higher frequency aspect.
That too. Okay.
Yeah. So you bring in the higher frequency aspect and you say, okay, so what happened? Okay. So there are experiences where an individual will have had a narcissistic parent. okay? But also an abusive parent, okay?
Yeah.
So there's mental and physical abuse. Yeah. And it's pretty much done their heads in. Yeah. And they're left with no value. They're terrified. They're holding these frequencies in their body. And they're struggling to forgive that parent. Okay. Often what comes in is you contracted to learn about independence. You contracted to learn about self-love. Yeah. You've had many, many lives with the soul that is your father. Yeah. And when you bring this higher self in of the father, there have been times when they've said, yes, we contracted for you to learn the lesson of self-love. We agreed that you wanted to have these particular experiences. I had to drop my frequency so low to play this role for you. And this aspect of myself got lost in the density, got lost in the darkness. It's lost itself. I apologize to you from the bottom of my heart for the experience that you've had. It wasn't meant to be. You've undergone far more than you signed up for. I love you and I'm sorry.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, when people come out of an experience like that, all of a sudden they see the perpetrator for the wounded soul and the wounded animal they are.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you have to wake up and love them. Yeah. But it means that you can forgive them. Yeah.
It's liberating.
Right?
Yeah.
You can let go of the pain. Yeah. You can set yourself free.
Yeah.
And you can redefine your relationship with them. Okay, we're going to keep them at hand's length still because they're absolutely toxic in the 3D world. But we understand the soul contract. We love them for who they are and we'll accept them for their flaws, you know?
So you can do that for present day as well as past lives. Is that, I know you said you could look at a past life and then you can bring your higher self in, but you can also go into present day, talk to your higher self about this lifetime.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, when you bring your higher self in, your higher self knows everything about your soul, past, present, future lives. So a lot of people say, oh, I want an Akashic record reading. Well, your higher self has all the knowledge of your Akashic records at multiple frequencies. Yeah. So you bring your higher self in, and also you can do body scans, right?
Okay.
So when you do QHHT, you always do a body scan. You say, I want you to scan the client's entire energetic system, and I want to understand the blocks.
Okay.
Yeah. Why do they have this health issue? Why is this problem manifesting? You know? So they'll go through emotional blocks and they'll say, okay, they have these 4 beliefs that they're carrying that aren't serving them. Okay, can we release those beliefs? Yes, we can. Okay, what are we we're releasing these 4 toxic beliefs.
Yeah.
What beliefs are we going to replace them with? And the higher self will give a list of new beliefs.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then the client can always feel the energy going into them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really beautiful process. And then, you know, you can ask about your physical issues. Why has it developed? Why am I holding it? How do I heal it? Yeah. And if the client's ready to let go and move on, you can have quite profound healing. Yeah. So that's sort of how it works.
Okay. So, yeah. So this is so your health and soul contract is something that you have agreed to coming into this life. That's what you've agreed to, and it's energy. It can be made up of energy from previous lives as well. Is that?
It's always the origin is past lives, eons old sometimes.
So my arm pain could be related to something that happened to me 1,000 years ago that I'm still holding on to the trauma from.
Yes.
But that's probably repeated in every single life I've had since then as well.
Yeah. Or many of them if you've contracted, right?
Yeah.
But if you're in your 3D life as you're going through your day, anything that's presenting itself to you, whether it's pain or an emotional trigger response that's
Yeah.
negative, it's a reflection of something you need to heal inside of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of how you play the game. And the more empowered you become, the quicker you can release your density, right?
Yeah.
QHHT is, I mean, I say QHHT is invaluable for anyone for the types of journeys you can take. I've
Yeah.
had high level mediums and psychics come in, and
Wow.
you'd think that they sit down and have tea and coffee with their higher self.
Yeah.
But sometimes a lot of people don't actually sit down and have those one-to-one chats. So no matter who you are or what level you're at, QHHT can be, or quantum hypnosis can be phenomenally healing and revealing as to your soul's story.
And liberating as well, I think, when you can actually take on the fact that maybe I did contract for this, maybe I did, as a beginner going into this, maybe I did. It changes the perspective of everything in your life like that. And so it gives you this way of looking at things that is really liberating and empowering. And it gives you that push to go forward with it and to go and seek out help from something like quantum healing hypnosis that you can do that can help you go that next step further, I think.
Yeah, because I think fundamentally what people are going to start realizing more and more is that we are responsible for creating our reality. We have complete control over it.
Yeah. Which is hard to hear.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, if you've got traumas, it's not because you failed in understanding your empowerment. It's part of your soul's game. You wanted to grow through these experiences. You wanted to transmute and rise like a phoenix from the flames, right? This is just a game where your soul is like, how deep and dark can I go and find my way back?
Yeah, I like that way of looking at it. It's just a game. And I use that sentence myself sometimes as well when things are getting really hard and not going the way I want. If you can just remind yourself, it's just a game, just a game.
Yeah.
Just a game. And it gives you that moment just to pull yourself back and to go, okay, let's look at it from a different angle.
Yeah. And you can look at it from the perspective of, I want to heal myself or I want to change my reality.
Yeah.
The flip side is manifesting, right?
Yeah.
You just sit and manifest everything you want in your life. All you have to do is align your mind and your emotions. And if you're not manifesting immediately, well, I'm not going to say immediately, but if you're having trouble manifesting, the issue is that you've got a belief over to the side that in conflict.
Yeah. So this trauma that we carry through, often in this life that we lead, our 3D life, in this society, it's not okay to talk about traumas. It's not okay. You're supposed to brush them under the carpet, pretend they didn't happen. Nobody wants to hear about your dad when you were a child. Nobody wants to hear about how terrible life was for you. And you get into that habit of suppressing it. But at the same time, you live with that as who you are. So, I know that I did it myself for years. So, I lived my life as the child that I was and the trauma that I suffered. I lived my life like that. Still, when I was 30, that was still me. And that was, I was the victim, and that was who I was, because nobody had ever talked to me about it, even at the pit of a full psychological breakdown. Nobody had ever said to me, well, maybe it's time that you actually dealt with this, Kerry. There's obviously a problem here. And I think that's one of the things that's really, really hard for people to understand, is this importance of actually facing your trauma, because it seems so scary.
Kerry, that's such an important point. That's such an invaluable point for people to understand and remember. But even more so going to the repression, yeah, and not talking about it. I wholeheartedly agree. Start talking. If anybody will listen, even if it's your dog,
Yeah.
your cat, start talking and releasing. But if you look at it from an energetic perspective, yeah, when I see people who are repressing emotions, you're blocking your energy flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen people who have blocked their energy flow to the point where nothing's getting through in certain energy vortices or chakras.
Yeah.
And that's when quite serious illness will arise,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So if anybody's sitting there and you're holding pain or you're repressing thoughts or emotions that are upsetting for you, you really do need to allow flow, allow yourself to feel it. You have to get that energy moving, because if you don't start addressing it, you'll manifest your physical ailments like I did.
Yeah, which is, it's hard. It's really hard for people to swallow, I suppose, to understand that when they're in the midst of a real physical illness or even a mental illness, you know, anxiety or whatever, to say to somebody, well, you're repressing this incident that happened 20 years ago that's affected your life, and this is why. It's such a hard thing for people to understand, but it's so important that we start to do that now as a society. I think
Yeah.
going forward, it's just so important.
But you know, in speaking to that as well, you're talking about going back to being a child and the energy pattern there and holding on to it. And you're holding on to energy patterns that probably a lot of people that I speak to, they think they're healed, right? And then they start talking, and all of a sudden, you know, they're like, God, I haven't thought about this in 20 years. And then they're in tears,
Yeah.
right? But if you think about it, these energy patterns didn't originate in your childhood. They originated long ago. And you're just bringing them through one more time to let go of.
Yeah.
So if anything, the message is let go in any way you can.
Yeah. And seek out whatever resonates with you right then in that moment. Like you say, even if it's just going for a chat with the dog. You know, they love listening.
Will listen.
Yeah. I don't care, just anything. And you're right, and a lot of times, you know, I can only go off my personal experience here, but I had things that happened to me that I talked about, like, you know, oh yeah, that happens, you know, when you do this is who I am, that's what happened to me, yeah, well, it was terrible, people have it much worse. And then I started healing myself. And I remember when I was learning EFT, my supervisor said to me, Kerry, you're frozen. You're like, you know, there's fight, flight, and freeze, and you are just like, you're just frozen. There's nothing there. And I went away going, oh, she, I don't know what she's talking about. And then after a while, I started being able to get into the problem and crying about things that I talked about that were so blasé, and crying, you know, all this emotion that was built up that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
You know, and people, you just don't, people just don't realize when you get to a point where it just becomes the norm for you and you're just frozen in that pattern. I should just burst a dam.
Absolutely. So explain how you use EFT and explain how you've integrated that into your own journey.
Well, for me, I have just had to. Well, I found the triggers. For me, is I found the triggers at first, and I found the big things that I needed to work on, and then from working on the big things, it led me into recognizing patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So then I became able to recognize a pattern from something that's happened to me when I was younger, that then happened to me again in my 20s, that then came around again in my 30s. And I think that is just being able to do that and to be able to work through. And it's, you know, and from what I've done a lot of work on all of these issues to try and to diffuse them and to be able to, because I think you can't help other people, which is the same as from your point of view, is that you can't help other people until you've cleared your own stuff, because otherwise you're just taking your own stuff and putting it on somebody else.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true.
But I've also realized that I think I've got no solid proof of this apart from talks with myself, that, you know, this lifetime I seem to have come in with an attitude of, throw everything you've got at me. I am going to take the lot. I am going to take everything you can possibly think to throw at me, and I am going to come back from it, and I am going to rise from it. And I think that's, you know, I've never channeled or gone into my higher self on that level, but I talk to, I don't know who I talk to, but I do talk to people. Like, I imagine, I feel energy around me, so I talk to the energy in a sense. I talk to the energy that's around me when I go out for walks and before bed at night. I talk to the energy that's around me, and that's one of the things that I've come to understand from doing that, is that I think this lifetime was something big for me that I needed to get a grasp on. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a big clearing lifetime for everyone.
Yes.
But I think you also mentioned something really important, is the patterns.
Yes.
People are always like, why does it always happen to me? Why does this keep happening? But it is because, again, if you're holding it in your energy field, if you're holding that belief, you will continue to attract it until you address it.
That is one of the things that I find particularly hard for people to grasp when I tell them that. And it's particularly hard because until you've done a lot, until you start going into it, and then people start to be able to see, because I can see it straight away, and I imagine you can as well. When people tell you something, you see it straight away, and it's a difficult one for people to understand, because it's hard to understand that you're bringing it in.
Yeah, that you've created your own misery.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny, because then the next step is, what if you tried it this way? If you could redefine the reality, how would you define it? You know, and that's when you start breaking down those mental and emotional barriers. I mean, this is another thing as we speak about this. You know, the universe works with you based upon your beliefs. Yeah. And your perspectives. Yeah. So if you limit your beliefs and perspectives, all the energy around you works based on that. You know, for just as an example, I had a friend who said, "Oh, I'd really like you to do some energy work on me." Okay. That's great. What I didn't realize is that she didn't believe I could do it. Right?
Okay.
Even though she believes in energy healing, she didn't believe that I could do it. So when she came to me, I was like, you know, you've got a barrier around you. Yeah. She wouldn't let me in. She wasn't authorizing it.
Yeah.
Not consciously, but subconsciously.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll give you another example. I had another client, I did some work on her, cleared her energy field up. She's all happy. That's great, right? She decides to come back, you know, 4 or 5 weeks later, and I'm looking at her energy before she comes, and it's all clogged. It's all blocked in her heart, blocked in her throat, blocked in her arms. And I'm like, what did she do? What has happened in the last few weeks to block? I mean, she was open. So I'm talking to her about it as I'm working on her, and she starts laughing, and she's like, oh, I got really mad at somebody who had taken advantage of me. So I put a lock on my heart so I wouldn't feel anything, so nobody could hurt me. And I'm like, well, you did a really good job, because now you're blocking your own energy. It's not moving. Wow. There are more effective ways you could have dealt with that. Please don't go there again. But I think that people do not realize how powerful they are, how their mind and their emotion directs the energy in their life.
Yes.
Yeah. How effective it is. I just don't think people are getting it. And I think they're starting to learn now.
Yeah, it's that whole thoughts become things, isn't it? Your thoughts become things, essentially.
Whole mind, body, spirit.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're talking about past lives, The concept of going back to a past life can seem quite scary, I would imagine, to some people who haven't done it before. I know that I've dabbled with it myself at home on my own, and the experience that I had did scare me a little bit. It wasn't anything bad that happened. I was just transported to a time, and I knew when I was there I was scared.
Yeah.
There was nothing happened. There was no energy. I was just in a room, and I had something that I was hiding, and I was scared, and I could feel the energy of the fear, and I was trying to hide whatever I had from whoever was looking for it. I brought myself out after that because I didn't like it, and I didn't know what was going to happen. So it can seem quite scary. To me it seems scary, and I imagine to other people, because you don't know what you're going to end up in, especially if you're thinking, well, I've got these patterns in my life that are playing out. So what would you say to people that are thinking about it like that? Is it something that they should still think about doing?
I think absolutely. I think absolutely, because what I have found in my experience is that, so you did it yourself, right?
Yeah.
And you did, it's very brave that you did that on your own. Yeah, because it can be scary because you don't quite know where you'll go. I think if it's your first time going into the foray, it's a good idea to have somebody there to guide you and hold your hand.
Yeah.
Because when those situations come up, now your higher self is very gentle with you, okay?
Yeah.
But your higher self you can pull the person out so that they're objective, they're a witness, and they're removed.
Yes.
So for you, doing it to yourself, maybe the first time, you didn't realize that you can pull yourself out. You just felt fear, and you just stop.
Yeah.
Which is okay, right? But if you have somebody with you, or now that you have this information, if you choose to do it, understand that you can say, okay, this is very interesting. I'm going to remove myself from experiencing it, and I'm going to watch. Okay, show me the next thing that happens.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't need to feel this. I want to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next time, you take yourself under, or if you choose to go to somebody else, understand that you take those scary situations and you watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a much better point of view than being in it as an actor in the first person. Being able to do that is really important, and I think it is something that I would do in the future, but maybe, like you say, with somebody else.
Yeah, but you're obviously very talented, so having this tool and understanding that the next time you get into it, you go, okay, I'm at that scary place again. I'm just going to watch the little girl, I'm just going to watch them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, that sounds, and it feels much safer to be, like you say, you can imagine it more as you're viewing it at the cinema rather than
exactly
being an actor in the film.
Yeah. And then you can view it and witness it objectively, and you can do the analysis. What's the dynamic really going on here? Right. And so what I find also, it's interesting that you bring this up. I think taking yourself into self-hypnosis is a wonderful tool, and I think everybody should experiment with it and try it.
Yeah.
What I do find is if you go really deep, sometimes you can fall asleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're so you're so deep that your ego is sort of removed, and it's difficult to formulate questions.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a balance here. So I do think that sometimes when you're doing self-hypnosis, it takes training. So bravo.
Yeah.
But sometimes also you don't go as deep because you've still got your ego there directing the questions, directing the analysis.
Yeah.
So that again takes training to hold the ego in check.
Wow. Yes.
And that's where, a deep quantum hypnosis can be helpful, because sometimes people their consciousness will be watching, they'll be aware, but when you bring them out, they're like, it's like a dream. I can't really remember the details. I can't really remember the facts.
Okay.
and then you play the recording back to them.
Yeah.
You are with the recording, they listen to it. The information can sometimes be much deeper, much more profound because their ego wasn't there checking anything.
Yes. That's a really important point, because I find that myself. I know oftentimes that I've had a really deep meditation and that I have got lots of information, but once I come back from that meditation, it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be like, what was that word?
Yeah.
What was it?
There was something, I know there was something, and I'm not yet that skilled to pull myself out of a meditation, to write down what I want and go back in. I'm not at that that skill level yet either, and it can be it's frustrating doing that way. So like you said, doing it with somebody who will record it for you as well, and then you've got it all there.
And that's if it's right for you or that person. But I mean, if you can take yourself in to self-hypnosis or reading your own Akashic records, connecting with your higher self, it's really important for self-empowerment to know your own truth and get your own information from you. So I think that's great that you're doing that.
How do you know the difference between talking to your higher self,
right,
and your ego making it up as you go along? Is there a distinction? Because I know, you go into hypnosis, but how do you still know? I mean, I guess maybe it comes with a feeling as well, instead of it just being your ego telling you what it thinks.
So I think that when you're starting out, it's a really fine line that's difficult to discern, right? So again, there is practice and experience that comes with that discernment and clarity. What I like to teach people in the beginning is to connect with their higher self in a sacred space. And then I like to teach them to ask their higher self for visceral responses. Okay.
Okay.
So that they'll connect with the higher self. They'll ask a question. They'll get information, and they're like, "Did you just say that? Is that what? Did I hear that right?" And then you say, "Okay, validate for me that that's what you meant and what you said." And then you get a physical validation. Okay, my ego did not make up the physical validation.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit of trust.
Yeah.
And you go further. And then as you proceed, you don't need those physical validations. You don't need that clarity, because you've learned how to instantaneously quiet your mind and be receptive.
Yes.
And that's really the difference. The ego is like a constant chatter. It's a constant directed noise. It's your thoughts. I wonder about this. Maybe what will I have at lunch? I'm so excited. But then when you quiet your mind and you just say, what do I do about this? And there's a moment of nothing. And then you hear something. Your higher self is often your own voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that it comes in as my own voice. Yeah. But I feel it as coming. I do know, I'm able to discern now, that's not my ego chattering day to day.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I do think it's great if you're starting out to start with the physical validation. So there's trust. Yeah. There's confidence. And then as you get used to it, you're just like, okay, so what do you think? You quiet your mind instantaneously, and then you allow yourself to hear. It's allowing yourself to be receptive.
Yes.
So interestingly, with energy healing, what I see with a lot of people is that, one, they will block reception. Yeah. They do not allow themselves to receive their intuition, their messages. Yeah. And the information that they do receive, especially if there's a skew towards the masculine in their energetic field, is that they're projecting their views onto the information coming into them.
Yes.
Right? So everything is seen through these rose-colored glasses. And they don't have clarity. They can't have clarity because they're so busy projecting their beliefs.
Yes, onto what they're hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I find that fascinating when you see it in the energy field and then you meet the person,
Yeah, and you can see exactly what's going on.
And then when you sit there and you call them on it, they're like, oh, right. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I think I see what you're saying there, you know?
Because it resonates with them as well, and they know.
Yeah, you can't hide.
No.
Your energy field speaks your story.
Yes, that's one of the things, isn't it? And you take it everywhere, and we read each other's energy fields without knowing that we're doing it anyway. It's not, we've trained in our specialist subjects of energy healing, but we read other people's energy all the time without knowing. It's just something that we do as humans, and we're really, really good at it, but we just don't realize that we do it.
Yeah. And that's actually another good point. You're right. We are all sensitive. We
Yeah.
are all beings of energy,
Yeah.
right? What I also find is that a lot of people do not set appropriate energetic boundaries. Yeah. And when I see that people aren't setting energetic boundaries, I also know they're not setting appropriate boundaries in their 3D lives with the people around them. There's always somebody that's interfering, and it's not anybody's fault, but it's like, are you over compromising? Do you feel that you don't have a voice? Yeah. How are you spending your energy? Right.
Yeah.
So it's
hard for somebody who's empathic as well. It's particularly hard not to do that, because I've done that myself. I go into a room and I can know who is in a bad mood, even if they're standing there with a big smile on their face. I know that there's something wrong, and then that's a skill to learn. Then is not to have to be extra nice to that person, because you know that if you say one wrong thing, then you could be on the receiving end of whatever that is that's there. And it's a skill I've had to learn myself, is not to do that, because that's not my job to do that. And people just don't realize that they do it, because you don't realize that you're empathic because it's something that you've always done your whole life.
Because you are an energetic being.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, people need to realize they're energetic beings.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the first step. And then they have to realize that they have power. They are empowered. They set their boundaries. They decide who they are, So similar to what you're saying, sometimes there are people where, like one experience for me is I'll have people come at me and like talk 100 miles an hour, and they're just pushing their energy at me. And it's just like, whoa, back off. And I'll just set up an energy field, like my energy is mine, their energy is theirs. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm just listening. Yeah. They're just toned way down and they're held at bay.
Yes.
And then I can be in the same room, without being rude.
Yeah. And that's something we can all do. It's by putting the thought there with the intention.
Yeah. And this is another way to look at how your beliefs and emotions affect your energy field. Yeah. Say, for example, a past love that you still pine over.
Yeah.
I've gone into people's energy fields, and that childhood boyfriend or girlfriend, or that person that dumped them, whatever, that they may not think about that often, but they'll still think about them, or they'll still hold an emotional attachment. It's still a cord in their energy field.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years. Let it go. Appreciate them for who they are, but stop throwing your energy out to them. Yeah.
It's just giving it away.
Yeah. And that's it. You're giving your energy away. Whenever you're projecting out, oh, I want them to see me, or why don't they love me, or why not this? You're leaking your energy.
Yeah. Instead of keeping it and projecting who you are out, so then you'll get what you want back. In a sense.
And it's the same way with people coming at you. Sometimes people who have a persona, right? And they've got strangers that they just want a piece of them. I want to be a part of that. I want their attention. I want, they'll put energy into you. So you just have to sit there and go, my energy is mine, their energy is theirs. My energy is mine, their energy is theirs. As simple as that.
Yes, and it works. I also find, when I first started, is imagining a shield.
Yeah.
Around myself. I used it a lot at the beginning of this, when I went to a supermarket, put my shield on. At the beginning of the pandemic, put my shield on, and then whatever's happening around me, I am okay, because I can just go along and get my shopping, and I'm not affected by all of these people and all of their crazy energy that's happening. And it's a really good one to use if you're more of a visual person and you need something visual, you know, go full on crazy with it. My shield was amazing.
And that's what you get to do. That's your empowerment. That's your creativity.
Yeah.
You get whatever you want. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
You can't be wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing. People don't realize that as you go higher in frequency, yeah, your thoughts and your emotions, you create instantaneously. You give them life.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're working in the energetic field and you say, okay, activate shield. I know this sounds like really sci-fi and silly, so bear with me for any of you.
Marvel film.
But you create it. So
yeah.
like you were saying, when you go to the grocery store during COVID, I would go in, and because I transmute energy, and I just learned, you know, that's just what I do. I mean, I'd feel ill. I'd go, you know, so, and I was like, I can't grocery shop like this. Not my job. So anyway, yeah. So you're absolutely right. You know, set your boundaries energetically and set your boundaries with people. That can include your spouse. That can include your children. That include your mom and dad, your brothers and sisters, and other people who, you know,
you come in and out.
yeah.
Amazing. One last thing then before we go.
Yes.
We touched on it a little bit in this. What is your view of the process that we are all as a collective going through right now? What does this mean in a nutshell?
Wow.
Okay. I know it's a big question, and it's a lot to answer.
So this is it's really interesting that you say this, because there's a founder energy that works through me for my healing, and I just started channeling with them, and they just channeled a message about this.
Wow.
Okay? So I'll say it from that perspective, and I'll say it from the perspectives.
Yeah.
So what was shown and explained was that we're all on Earth looking at this from kind of our naive and ignorant perspectives. Yeah, we're just starting to learn about energy. And what they explained is what's happening is happening in the universe, okay? There's actually a shift that's taking place in the universe.
Okay.
The universe is healing. The universe is shifting up in frequency. It's not just Earth, okay? So we're a part of something that's quite big, yeah? Our job, what we're going through in this right now, is we have the potentiality as a collective consciousness, which we have chosen, to shift our frequency up quite quickly. They use the word in the blink of an eye.
Wow.
I didn't define that because from their perspective, that could be a while in human years.
Yeah.
I have to go back and clarify that. I haven't done that quite yet. But what they explained is there is information that is going to start coming through that has not been available to humans for eons. Yeah, and I don't know if I didn't clarify, does eons mean never, or at some point it was?
Yeah.
But information is going to start coming through about how energy works. There's going to be a unification of spirituality and science. Yeah, so they're not going to be separated anymore. Yeah. And as this starts to come together, human beings are going to be able to shift. And when I say shift, I mean dropping density.
Okay.
Right? So we're talking about techniques like EFT, QHHT, energy healing. Mm-hmm. But what we're really talking about is the human collective consciousness is going to start opening its mind and understanding that they're energy beings. And they're going to, because of that, they're going to understand how to transmute their negative energy, their lower density frequencies. Okay. We'll call those your traumas. Yeah. Yes. So while we're sitting here talking about QHHT, yes, this modality will be here for a while, but the sophistication of the human comprehension is going to move forward so quickly that literally you'll be able to go into your energy field and you'll be like, I don't need that. I don't need that. Letting go is going to become much easier and much simpler. And as we do that, right, we make more space in our energy field for light. And with light comes consciousness and knowledge. Yeah. And that's how society is going to transform, right? So what we're going through right now would be the collective dark night of the soul. We're doing our shadow work. Yeah. So a lot of you who have come here and you're feeling your pain and your traumas, that's because this is the time. These are the lives where we're transmuting the density. We're coming out of this like phoenix from the flame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So that we can shift with the universe.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a really big, beautiful thing. Yeah. And for many of you don't realize this, but as I do the soul journeys and the energy readings, I am finding that many of the souls here actually, some people say, oh, it's a prison planet. Oh, it's this planet. There are perspectives to that, and everything has its truth at different frequencies, right? But as you move out of polarity and you go to the higher frequencies, you move into the grand plan. Yeah.
Yes.
And what I'm seeing when I do the soul journeys is that the souls on earth are actually quite talented, quite high frequency. They're co-creators. They're unbelievably powerful. Their master soul aspect exists outside of 12D density. They're powerful. We'll just say they're powerful. Okay. And they're here to do the heavy lifting because they know how, because they have the remembrance, because they have the energetic signatures to be able to do the shift this quickly. Yeah. So I will have people who will come to me who are like, I can't do this. I don't have the strength. Who am I? You know, somebody told me I was this in a past life. When I go into their soul journeys, I'm seeing you've been angelic. Yeah. You've been a co-creator. Yeah. You know, some people's traumas are because they created a planet and something went wrong and then they've been beating themselves up ever since. Yeah.
Wow.
So humanity has to stop playing small.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We've been taught that for so long that we are just small little people.
Yeah.
No other purpose than to just go out and earn money and have your 2 days a week to have a rest and not do anything. that's your life, and then you die, and then that's it. And the things that we're talking about today have a huge impact on your life, I think, to be able to think, just even contemplate that these things are possible, that this could be who you are.
Yeah.
Is enough.
And every single person's entitled to their dreams.
Yes.
Every single person. Yeah. Because the energy creates for you, around you. And that's how we create our shift. Everybody's like, oh, society's going to change. Well, that's because you have to start creating your reality. You have to walk the walk.
Yes.
Yeah. Shift your energy, you shift your reality. And the more people who do it, society changes, the world changes.
Yeah. In the words of Dolly Parton, be the change.
She's amazing. She's amazing. Hats off to Dolly Parton.
Oh, thank you so much, Jane. It's been so interesting to have this chat. If people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
So you can go to my website at www.quantumenergyhealing.co.uk, and you can find out everything there. Or you can email me, but my email's on my website. And people, don't be shy. You know, we're all here to grow, to support each other. You know, that's my role here. This is Carrie's role. We're here to help people heal your traumas and move on and create the reality you want.
Excellent. And I will put your website in the description below as well, so that people can just go in and have a look as well. So that'll be easy for people.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jane. I really appreciate you giving me the time today and talking through this. And I know there is somebody out there that really needs to hear this today.
Oh, Carrie, thank you. Have a great week.